Well, it's good to see you all this morning, and the house well filled. I think this is probably about as full as this little building has ever been, and it's good to have all the visitors here. Good to have my father-in-law and my mother-in-law and their family here. Thank you for coming out today. Turn to James chapter 5. One of my favorite things about this time of year is being outside and just doing work around the house, working on my landscaping or doing gardening, doing yard work. It's just, I love being outside. And often Florence, my daughter, will be outside with me, just either watching me work or playing with her toys. So we live right in town, and we're surrounded by neighbors' houses all around us. We have streets that go all around us, and the problem is we don't have any backyard fence. And so I'm constantly having to just keep my eye on her, make sure she hasn't wandered off, because she doesn't. I know where the boundaries are, but she doesn't. She knows where Daddy's home is, and she knows she's safe there. But I'm constantly having to watch her and make sure she doesn't wander off away from home. Several times I've had a little panic attack because I'd be, out there weed eating or whatever, and I look up and she's gone. She's disappeared. And I'd set down my weed eater and scamper around the house trying to look for her. And usually I'd find her, she had wandered off to the neighbor's house, maybe chasing the neighbor's cat or following a robin that was sort of leading her away from home. And I'll run after her and pick her up and bring her back to her home. And you see, she doesn't realize, she doesn't see the dangers that I do as her dad. She doesn't realize that she could get lost if she wanders away from home. She doesn't realize that she could get hit by a car or maybe even get kidnapped. But I see those dangers as her father, and I always bring her back home, and I tell her, Florence, come back to Daddy's home, come back to Daddy's house. Today we're going to see how God pursues those that wander away from Him. And we're also going to see how God calls you and I to pursue our brother that has wandered away from God. So I'm going to be concluding my series on the book of James today. We're going to be looking at the last two verses of chapter 5. And James has been writing to a group of believers of a group of early churches that they're mostly made up of Jewish converts. And he draws a lot on the teachings of Jesus, especially on the Sermon on the Mount. We've looked at things like how do we view wealth and poverty, how do we view suffering, how we use our tongues, how do we view faith and works. So we've looked at a lot of things over the past year, very practical and very applicable to our own day and our own time. The sort of the overarching theme of James is how do we as a body of believers, as a group of believers, live out our faith in a world that is hostile to our faith, in a world that is full of suffering, in a world that is full of hardship. How do we as a group of believers live out our faith? So today we're going to be concluding this book with verse 19 and 20 of chapter 5. Why don't you all stand, and we're going to read the verse together. My brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. Amen. You can be seated. So quite a way to end the chapter. There's so much here today, and it's so full of, I think, just the core of of who our God is and what it means to be his people. So what does it mean to wander from the truth? What does it mean to wander from the truth, and who is the wanderer here that James is talking about? So the word wander here comes from the Greek word planeo, and the active form of this word is to deceive, or by leading into error, or to seduce. And the passive form of this verb then is to go astray or to wander. So this word is used in Matthew 24:11 when Jesus talks about the end of days when many false prophets will rise up and will lead many astray. So the word wander there is the same root word there as the word astray there. It's the same word that Jesus uses when he talks about the one sheep that has left the fold, has left the 99 and has gone away. He says, if a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? So that's the idea here is of the wanderer.